Hi guys, how are all of you? So we're gonna have a little conversation now, and my name is Ethan. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm gonna introduce our panel. We're gonna have a conversation for a little bit, and we are so thrilled that you are joining us from near and from far. It is really, truly an honor to be up here with you. So we have joining us Rabbi Gershom Sizomu. Rabbi Gershom is the Chief Rabbi of the, yes, please. Is the Chief Rabbi of the Abyudaya community in Uganda, former member of the Ugandan Parliament, and after meeting my son at Arshel yesterday, my son's favorite rabbi. Good job. Yeah, that's impressive. We also, of course, have Rabbi Shoshana Nambi. It's nice to have you with us. Rabbi Nambi is the assistant rabbi at Congregation Beth Am in Los Altos Hills, California. She is the author of the children's book, The Very Best Sukkah About Sukkot in Uganda. It's so nice to have you. We also have Peter Decherney with us. He holds the Kahn Chair in Humanities at the University of Pennsylvania. He is the professor of cinema and media studies, as well as director of the Penn Global Documentary Institute. His book of photography, Endless Exodus, The Jewish Experience in Ethiopia, is forthcoming. It's nice to have you with us. And Sara Byala is the senior lecturer in critical writing at the University of Pennsylvania and the associate director of the Penn Global Documentary Institute. She is the author of, most recently, Bottled, How Coca-Cola Became Africa. It's nice to have you with us. So, we're gonna have a conversation tonight. I will direct questions towards the four of you, but you should feel free to jump in if you have something to say on any of these questions. So let's just start with, how did the four of you meet? This is not the first time you've been together. What brought you together in the first place? I'll let anyone jump in at the beginning for this one. Peter, do you want to take it since you're sitting right next to me? You can go ahead.
Yeah, Sara and I actually both met Rabbi Gershom in a way that so many other people here have met him. He comes to the US a number of times a year. He travels, he speaks and meets with people nonstop. And so we met him in the main line in a synagogue and heard him speak. And then about 2 years ago, when the first time we were in Uganda, we showed up during Shabbat, right before Havdalah. We walked up to Namadosi Hill and Rabbi Gershom was there, and we immediately jumped into a deep conversation. We have not stopped since. And then we knew Shoshana by reputation. And we knew her book and we knew her story. And then a mutual friend, Yosef Kabita, who's actually the first Ugandan to become a citizen of Israel, connected us on WhatsApp.
That sounds right.
You agree?
I agree. And Rabbi Gershom, we're from the Jewish community in Uganda, and Abayudaya, and Rabbi Gershom is my rabbi and my teacher. And I grew up learning from you, my brothers and I, and you bought us our first uniform to go to high school and so much more. So this is like an honor, always a privilege to just be sitting and be here with Rabbi Gershom. So that's great. Yeah.
And I guess I'll just add, when we were all together, well, not Shoshana, but when we were in Uganda a month ago, 5 weeks ago, we were in Kampala. It just was so exciting when Rabbi Gershom said, actually, I'm going to be in Philadelphia in February. So we are super lucky here, even if Peter and I are outnumbered by rabbis up here.
So let's start by talking about the movies we just saw, which were incredible. And Peter, I'm going to ask you the first question, which is, why start with the cave? Why is that the landmark that you chose to center at least one of the films around?
So I'll just say all of my, I think, best photographs or films are pre-visualized. So I knew I wanted to make the Cave Synagogue film since Sara and I hiked there with JJ the first time, and when we were back last summer, I knew this was one film we wanted to make. I didn't know what the other one would be. But I think it's a really important story to tell for a number of reasons. Also, there was sort of like, I knew what it would look like, and there were certain idea, like JJ was not allowed to be shown inside. He's a farmer and a man of the land. Also, to say cave, the word for cave in Luganda means both rock and cave. So some people are upset that he's not in a dark space that's totally surrounded, but it is kind of like half cave, half rock. But I think this is a really important story for a few reasons. One is the reason JJ gives, which is if you're looking for some document of Abayudaya history, this is something that really connects them to their history, and it's permanent. They're fourth generation Jews in Uganda. But also the experience of Idi Amin and the oppression and the generational trauma it's left, I think connects them to Judaism in a very deep way and to stories of Jewish history.
Rabbi Nambi, I want to ask you a similar question about the holy spaces in your communities. Right? So much of our religion is one of holy time, but I wonder if you could speak for a minute about what your community's relationship to space is. The cave, the schools, the mikvahot, everything that's there. If you could say a few words.
So I grew up around the synagogue. I grew up going to Hebrew school and Purim plays and everything. So it was a place to go to synagogue and sing proudly in Ugandan and show off the Hebrew that we knew. And also it was a place to be with friends and family, and you can see everybody. It's like a happy place. It's a really wonderful place. And I could say in the cave, we've all visited the cave. If you go to JJ's home, you cannot leave without seeing the cave. So it's really nice. And just watching the film, just seeing all the places that I know and the people, and even just in the town where Rachel is going shopping and everything, it just like really brings back really just nice memories and times of being with family and friends.
Sara, I want to ask about the first film and why the two of you chose Shabbat as the sort of narrative vehicle to teach us about the community.
Yeah. So the story centered on Shabbat is both specific to the Abyudaya and universal to Judaism, right? So Shabbat is every week, it is our break. But as Rachel says so beautifully, and it, generally in sub-Saharan Africa, and I think many of us can relate here, women do most of the work. Okay, at least half of the audience could have said yes. Okay, but women are doing the reproductive labor, they're doing the productive labor, they're busy, and Shabbat is this break and this time for mindfulness. And so just centering that alongside of the kind of music and the beautiful music around Shabbat was our vision for that.
Rabbi Sizomu, I want to ask you about Shabbat. I want to ask you both what Shabbat means to you as a rabbi and as a Jew, and then I have a follow-up question for you as well. But what does Shabbat mean to you as in your practice?
Shabbat is a peaceful day of rest. I grew up during Idi Amin's time, and I had an opportunity to go to the synagogue. But we always had an opportunity to pray in secret. And one of the days that we came together to pray in the bedrooms and in secret and in darkness, because we didn't want to be noticed, was on Shabbat, a day on which we changed our diet, a day we had to prepare in advance for, not like the other days. And as children, preparation in advance meant that on Shabbat we had a special meal. And this special meal included the most delicious in Uganda, the staple, the matoke. When I talk about matoke, Rabbi Nambi knows. And many of you have visited Uganda. I have so many friends and colleagues who have visited Uganda. We eat matoke as a delicacy. It is a big deal. So when you see matoke, which is a mashed plantain on the table with fish stew with peanuts mixed into the fish, that's what we used to eat on Friday in welcoming Shabbat. It meant a lot. It's my childhood attachment to Judaism was through celebration of Shabbat.
Thank you.
I think, yeah.
Please go ahead.
And I was going to say, I think the same way. And I think I appreciated Shabbat even much more hearing from Rachel and about how it means a lot for the women. And I think it should for all of us, everybody who works, to take Shabbat as a serious day of reflection and rest. And I loved it because it, like Rabbi Gershom said, it looked different at home. My grandparents, we all grew up on farms. We even when we went to school, we woke up very early in the morning to go dig or weed or do something in the farm before we could come back home and shower and bathe and then go run to school. So on Shabbat, we all looked forward to Shabbat. And our grandparents were so smart. They really made us really nice clothing for Shabbat, and we had shoes, even when we didn't have shoes going to school. This was very special, and we went to for Shabbat with them. And my grandparents did not work, and they didn't go to the farm. And I remember, I think my grandfather was very when he was really old and losing his memory. There was a time where he woke up in the morning on Shabbat and took his hoe and went to the garden to dig. And that was very difficult for us to see because it meant that he loved Shabbat. He would never go to the garden on Shabbat. So it meant so much to all of us in the village. And we would go see our friends and, pray and sing. So it's still, I still have those memories and carry with me. Yeah.
Thank you. So, Rabbi Sizomu, now I'm going to embarrass you a little with connections we have that we didn't even discuss this ahead of time, but you were for a long time at my aunt's synagogue in Los Angeles with Rabbi Kamaris, and yes, they say hi. They were very sad when you left, and you are someone who you're a brilliant teacher wherever you are, whether you're at your home in LA, your home in Mbale, your home wherever you are, and with the other thing that we didn't talk about, but I actually spent Pesach with you in Uganda 14 years ago, so it's okay that you don't remember, it's fine. But one of the things I was struck by at the Seder was the way in which the narrative of Idi Amin, that I was blown away that you've actually known Pharaoh, right? I grew up in Wisconsin, I didn't know Pharaoh, right? But you have. And I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about the ways in which your story has been made included and inclusive into the greater Jewish narrative, and then also maybe if there are ways in which you've been excluded as well.
Thank you so much. The story of the Jewish people is a painful story on one hand, a story of discrimination, of anti-Semitism, of abuse of Jewish people. Actually, I speak this with the pain because today we heard about the hostages who were killed, a whole family with a grandfather brought back. I was crying, and we know that Idi Amin attempted to do that. He killed our spirit. Many of our people got discouraged because of Idi Amin, and our numbers reduced. But it's also a story of resilience. The story of our community and the story of the Jewish people is a story of resilience, that we will never give up. And that is where our power lies as Jewish people, not only here in Israel, but in Uganda and other places. So our story connects with the Jewish story. And we are happy to be part of that story of resilience, that despite the hatred, despite all attempts to eliminate Jewish people, we are still here. And that is where our power is. Thank you.
Thank you. And Rabbi Nambi, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, we heard in the film from Rachel about some of the anti-Semitism that she felt growing up in the school, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what anti-Semitism looks like in your community in Uganda, if it has changed over the years, if it is growing, if it is shrinking, what the relationship of the community to the people around them has been.
Thank you. I think Rabbi Gershom's generation, not very far apart, but experienced it a bit more.
Yes.
And then Rachel is a few years older than me as well. But I also, when we were going to school, I went to a Catholic school. And it was the same in classes, all the kids called you Jesus killers, and we had to go to school on Saturday. You could not miss. And, I remember my grandparents were very sad about it. They wanted us to go to synagogue, and the school would not let us go to synagogue most of the time. And I remember that I knew her, but my best friend, her name is Sarah, for a long time, we went to the same school, but we didn't speak to each other. And I remember going to her and saying, we were among other kids, and saying, I know you go to my synagogue. And she said, no, I did, in a different way, but of making sure, knowing that all the other kids don't hear that she also goes to synagogue. And when we met later at the synagogue, we ended up being best friends. And, at school, we were hiding a little bit that we were Jewish, because then it would open up all the kids laughing at us and all these things. And I think I remember making a pledge to myself that I'm going to be a rabbi, because I don't want to work on Shabbat, and I don't want to do anything, I don't want to go anywhere on Shabbat. I found out the hard way, but it's really, it's like a very important, nice work. And it's I would say there's elements of anti-Semitism now, but it's not as aggressive and it's not as risky as it was the older regimes. And it's more, heated discussions will come up about Israel and about, when you're talking to Muslim friends. I have Muslim and Christian friends. We all went to school with everybody. And when I went to university in Kampala, the first person that I met, my friend, she asked if I was, what religion I was. And I said, I am Jewish. And she said, no, I mean like Christian or Muslim. What are you religion? I said, I am Jewish. It's because even in Uganda, people did not know that there was a Jewish community in Uganda, in Eastern Uganda. And for people who knew, they were like, why? Haven't you heard the good gospel of Jesus or something like that? And I think turning to Rabbi Gershom, seeing Rabbi Gershom with the kippah in Parliament, and all of a sudden the national television is coming to figure out and to record the celebration of the Rosh Hashanah of the Jewish New Year and all these things. So it's also like a game changer in Uganda as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Peter, I want to talk about your art for a minute, which was beautiful. We all saw the photographs, the color, the light, the use of symbols that are familiar with symbols that are not familiar to me. It was incredible. And I wonder if you could talk, what are you trying to capture with the photographs that you've taken?
Actually, the very first conversation we had with Rabbi Gershom and Abayudaya, we told him about the project, and the very first thing he said was, if you try to capture us, tell the story of our religious life and our spiritual life, not just our everyday life. And so I think about that all the time as I walk through the community. I also have a different relationship to Shabbat. Shabbat is when all this great stuff happens, and as a photographer, you're not allowed to capture it, which is incredibly frustrating. That doesn't make any sense to me. Part of the method is we think I'm partnering with people. So often now artists are told and believe they can only tell their own story. They're only empowered to tell their own story. I actually think in a more polarized world, it's more important than ever to tell shared stories through connections and differences. And so we like to think we're partnering with the communities, that we're amplifying their stories, and ultimately that we're empowering them to tell their own stories. So we just got back a month ago from Uganda. We brought students with us. We taught them how to do interviews and do oral histories, which are now become part of the Shoah Foundation. They did an amazing job doing that. We helped them the first interview with Rabbi Gershom, and then they did it on their own. And then when we left a camera with our translator. Moshe, there's actually a picture of him out there reading Torah with a kind of red light behind him, an orange light. And so we just today actually got the first set of interviews that he did. So now he is capturing the oral histories and the stories from the community. So we see this as a kind of, again, partnership and amplification, but ultimately, helping to empower them to tell stories and to try to, tell stories across these, as you said, connections and the differences.
Wow, that's very cool. The fascinating with the considerations that you use in that it's beautiful, and it shows in both the film and the pictures that you've made. Sara, I want to ask you about Coca-Cola for a second, because you are sort of an expert in the ways in which Western companies and capitalism interaction with countries in Africa, and I wonder if you see anything similar in the religious interactions between North America, Africa, Jewish as well.
Yes, you didn't think you'd hear that question asked tonight. Okay, so I just finished a book, which is a history of Coca-Cola in Africa, and the central argument is that it's not the story of a Western company coming in and taking over a continent, but it's evidence of Africans making Coca-Cola local in all sorts of ways. And right when I was at the end of that project, and Peter and I were having lunch and talking about maybe teaming up, and he was finishing up on Ethiopia, and so we were like trying to see the Venn diagram of the overlap there, and Jews in Africa. Yes, I've wanted to do this forever. I am from South Africa originally. I've had a file in my computer forever to do this. And I'm going to get to your question in a second, but I just have to tell you, our first time in Uganda, on our very last day, we were heading down to Kampala. We'd been in the car for hours and hours. And our guide, who the first day we were there said, there are no Jews in Uganda, by the 14th day or whatever, was like, we have to go to just one more synagogue. And we stopped in this community, Mukono, and we pulled up, and it's a Coca-Cola depot downstairs and a synagogue upstairs. And so the Venn diagram was complete, and there was the meeting of the world. But I think there is some. I'll make the overlap and the connection here to say that there are many stories of Judaism in Africa. The Abayudaya story is singular. I hope you see that it's beautiful and inspiring, and it is a form of African Judaism. It's not all African Judaism. It's Ugandan. And hopefully our larger project and book, of which there will be eventually a book with photos, will pull out a lot of these beautiful stories, but I'm not sure there are any quite like the Abyudaya. Yes. Rabbi Gershom, do you like Coca-Cola? You do. I did not ask you that question during the Shoah interview. Yes, so that's not on record.
So the last question I have for you is for all four of you. And Rachel says in the movie that they cannot do without us and we cannot do without them, talking about the connection between these communities. And so I want to ask each of you what that means for you. What is it that we cannot do without the Abyudaya? What is it that we in North America cannot do without the Abyudaya? What is it that the Abyudaya cannot do without us here? And I would love, if you don't have to answer, but I'd love for each of you to offer a thought. You want to start, Peter? Sorry.
I'm going to start only because I want to leave the last word to the rabbis on this one. No, but I'll just say we are all enriched and made bigger by seeing other forms of Judaism. We are all made bigger by seeing friends in the world who share, our same beliefs. The first time we were in Nabagoya, it was just like being on the main line, but with better singing. And it's true. We had an aliyah, and it was amazing and beautiful and comforting in a way that not a lot of things are in this world. And I think visitors who've been going for years and years and years have found this inspiration and this beauty and this friendship. And I hope that we are bringing that back in the community. The Cave Synagogue film you watched, we just showed it in that synagogue after hiking down in the cave to that community. So I hope that we are also enriching through our friendship that way.
You want to go before the rabbis too?
Yeah, I don't know that I can improve on that. That's a very positive way of saying what I was thinking in a negative way, which is we just posted something about the Abyudaya on social media, and I was really shocked by comments by people who said they're Abyudaya are not Jewish, who knew nothing. And I actually think it's a test of Judaism. It's a test of Israel to encounter, embrace the Abyudaya and forms of Judaism that might look different from one you grew up with. And as Sara said, I think it can only make you stronger and better And hopefully it's a test of ultimately, as a larger Jewish community, we will all eventually pass.
Rabbi Gershom and I, we were both at a Sub-Saharan African Jewish conference maybe 2 years ago. And it's true, there are there's Jews all over the African continent, Jews in Ghana and Madagascar and Tanzania and Cote d'Ivoire and so many, Nigeria and in Ghana. And it's, when we were there, it was just, even for us, it was just amazing to be there and hear all the different music and the stories. Every Jewish community has a different story. And I think that for the Abayudaya Jews, it's just an addition of like a Jewish story to the larger tapestry of Jewish stories and Jewish people. And with, we love learning. I'm enjoying learning stories of different Jewish communities and food and everything. And I think that the Abayudaya too, we are adding that to the larger Jewish community. Food, music, and so much, and stories, and the ways of life, and observance, and so much more. So I think it's really wonderful. I was always so proud. We grew up, when growing up, we had visitors from different Jewish communities around the world come to visit us and tell their stories. And I was always so proud to see that there are Jews in other places. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. If Idi Amin had killed every Jew in Uganda, none of you would have known. And would disappear like a green snake in green vegetation. I believe, and strongly believe, that we need each other. Our community has grown from strength to strength because of the support that we have received over the years from Jews outside of Uganda. We had a group of people who visited from here in 1994. And I'm proud to say that Rhoda Posner, who is seated right here, was one of them. And when they came to visit, like Rabbi Nambi said, we felt like angels had come. The story of Abraham receiving angels and bringing good news. Because we were actually tired of being an isolated small group of African Jews who are called Christ killers. Now, when we see that we are not alone, that there are other Jews in the United States, in Australia, Israel, Europe, and when they come to visit, like you came on Passover, that gives us a lot of energy. And the support has done a lot. We used to, for instance, we lived in a place where getting access to water was difficult. Walking 2 miles to get water, back and forth, carrying water on your head or your shoulders. Now, with the help and support of philanthropic Americans and Israel, people from Israel, we have wells drilled in almost the 10 villages that we have, and the people have access to clean water. We have received mosquito nets. You heard Rachel say that mosquitoes don't discriminate. And those mosquito nets have been given not only to the Jews, but also to the non-Jewish neighbors. Our water that we receive has been shared amongst all these non-Jewish neighbors. We have created schools where non-Jews go to get an education. And all this has given us a life. And you know very well that Ein Torah, Ein Kemach, Ein Torah. Where there is no food, there is no Torah. Where there is no Torah, there is no food. We have shared our Shabbat meals, not only with the Jewish people, but with others. And this is from your support as friends of Abayudaya. We have an organization that is taking shape called Friends of Abayudaya, and Rabbi Miriam Bag is right here in the audience. She's one of the managers of Friends of Abayudaya. We want to have Friends of Abayudaya in the United States and elsewhere, and that might enable us. We have a challenge that the state of Israel thinks that Abayudaya are targeting the social and economic amenities in the developed world. They don't know that when our community started in 1919, there was no Israel to go to. So they are making it difficult for our people to make Aliyah. And the Friends of Abayudaya organization can be an advocacy, can be a group that advocates for the rights of Abayudaya to make Aliyah or to visit Israel or to study in Israel. Because we need each other. We need Israel. And actually we are Zionists because we love Israel. Anything that touches Israel, we love Israel. And we pray for Israel every day. We pray for Israel every Shabbat. We sing the Hatikva. This is our spiritual home. And we need your support in everything that we want to, in every way that we want to relate with Israel. Because Israel does not listen to us because they think we are only looking for the good things in Israel. But your voices together can make Israel listen. And I want to say that much as Dr. Sara and Dr. Peter said, you might need Abayudaya, but we think we need you even more. So I want to call upon everybody who is in this room to accept, to be part of Friends of Abayudaya. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I thank you, all four of you, for being here. Thank you for everyone who came and is with us tonight. There is, I think, no better message for the world that we live in than that we are connected in this and we need to stay connected. And it's not always easy to get to know other people. It's not always easy to reach out. I'm going to, Rabbi Gershom, I'm going to quote you from that Passover Seder 14 years ago when you were leading it and you said, does anyone want to lead the next part? And no one wanted to. And I thought, oh, phew, even this guy can't get his community to talk. And you said, my wife and I quote you to this day, you said, shy people are not free people. And at a Passover, we have to be free. Yes. And so to learn about the others, even though sometimes it might be weird, to reach out to other people, to make a prayer space in your school for other religions, to invite people to Shabbat dinner, to join friends across the globe, it is a true testament to the resilience and connection of our people, and one that we need to give away the shyness and be the free and resilient people that we are. So thank you again. Thank you for being here. Have a wonderful night. That concludes our program for the evening.